spreading color and lights to bring hope, trust, healing, inspiration, good vibes, and beauty into the world. Today, it's my pleasure to announce the Zoominar with Nathan Oxenfeld. Nathan Oxenfeld is a certified Bates method teacher. He's the founder of Integral Eyesight Improvement based in Asheville, North Carolina. He's the author of Give Up Your Glasses for Good. He's the host of Naked Eye Podcast and the Better Eyesight Podcast. And he's the producer of the very new documentary, Vision 2020, From Eyesight to Insight. You can then see his website. I will write it into the chat, and feel free to write your questions or comments into the chat for Q&A. I will then, when we start the session, mute all, and welcome, Nathan.
Thank you, Gabrielle. It's really, really special to be here. I wanted to welcome everyone who's here with us live today. Really excited to share some of these really cool topics today about light and color and natural vision improvement. So yeah, definitely wanted to give you a lot of gratitude, Gabrielle, for not only
You have to unmute yourself, Nathan. Sorry.
Thank you for getting this Color Lights World project all together. We've already, starting in December last year, we had a couple free events where we all got to share some cool gifts with the world, and we've already begun to go through some of our speakers. We've had Pierre and Constance go so far, so pretty sure you can still get some of those replays. I'm actually diffusing some of Constance's color aromas today in the room, so it's just so cool. And we've got some really cool ones coming up too. Lean from South Africa coming up, and Gabrielle herself coming up as well. And I'll mention a little bit more of that at the end of today's class. But I really wanted to focus in today on this topic of natural vision improvement. So I would love to share my screen to go ahead and jump in to today's talk. Right off the bat, I kind of wanted to invite you to eliminate distractions. Not only today are we going to be talking about increasing our physical focus, but also our mental focus. So our ability to actually stay attentive and pay attention. That does not mean you have to stare at the screen though. So I'm going to try and lead by example by actually looking out this window, looking out that window, looking at my desk, maybe even taking some moments to close my eyes and take a break. I give you all permission to do that and more. Obviously, there's going to be some things on the screen to look at here and there, but I really want you to start to practice some good vision habits when you're on the computer screen. And we're going to go a little bit more into that today. But first, I did just want to let you know that I am, as Gabrielle mentioned, I am a Bates method teacher and a yoga teacher. I am not an eye doctor. I don't really prescribe anything or diagnose anything. I really teach people good vision habits that I personally used to gradually wean off of my prescription glasses over time to be able to see clearly without them. So although this is not a medical approach, we are going to learn a little bit about our anatomy and physiology today, about how the eyes actually function and actually focus light inside the body. So once again, my name is Nathan Oxenfeld. I've started Integral Eyesight Improvement. There's the website there on the screen. I think it might pop up into the chat as well. But today, I really wanted to focus in on the topics of how light and color play a role in this natural vision improvement process. So let's go ahead and dive in and just start with this fundamental question. Today, not only did I want to explain what natural vision improvement is and how it works, but give you some experiences with it and show you how you can actually incorporate it into your everyday life so it can actually transform your vision over time. And if you stick around, I do have a couple free bonuses that I want to share with you as well towards the end that will add to this class. and we're going to have some time for some Q&A at the end as well. But basically, the primary form of natural vision improvement that I personally used and that I personally teach is called the Bates method, which is named after an eye doctor named Dr. William Bates, who lived 100 years ago. We're going to learn a little bit more about him in the next slide. But this is not the only thing that I used to improve my vision naturally and to transform my relationship with light and color. I mentioned before, I'm also a yoga teacher, so I got a lot of inspiration from yoga as a whole, but also the specific area of eye yoga. And my tradition comes in the lineage of Swami Satchidananda. I did my yoga training at the Satchidananda Ashram in Virginia, more commonly known as Yogaville. And so my approach to natural vision improvement definitely is a holistic approach, and we're taking things from not only these more ancient wisdom practices like yoga, qigong, these types of things, but also more recent scientific endeavors by Dr. Bates and people since that time. Also taking into account things like diet and nutrition, maybe even supplementation in certain cases. In general, also just our lifestyle. Like I said, this whole computer screen issue, a lot of us, not only before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, are centered around this excessive screen time. So we really need, and that's not something that Dr. Bates had to deal with 100 years ago. So it's kind of this new phenomenon, this new issue that we really want to work with. And there's so much more that we can incorporate into natural vision improvement. And certainly the other practitioners in the Color Lights World Project are going to be giving you other examples of how to utilize light and color in some really unique ways. So it's this multifaceted approach. And what I'm really excited about sharing with you today is all this amazing stuff you're getting from the other practitioners in the group. Hopefully what I share with you today will enhance that. It'll enhance your ability to absorb light and to experience colors in an even more deep way. So just to kind of break down this Bates method thing a little bit, it really is this more holistic approach to eye care. We're all probably familiar with the conventional approach to eye care, which involves going to the eye doctor, getting a prescription for glasses or contacts, or maybe getting a surgery, or maybe using some drugs or some eye drops or certain things. We all know that story. So today we're focusing on the other side of the story, which was all pioneered by William Bates. I mentioned before, he lived 1860 to 1931. And a lot of people know him from his book called Perfect Sight Without Glasses, which came out in 1920, 101 years ago. Beyond that, though, he released a monthly publication called the Better Eyesight magazine, and it spanned over 11 years, a monthly thing that came out. And I'm proud to share that in 2019, my colleague Esther Joy Vanderwerf and I started the Better Eyesight Podcast to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of this project. Starting in 1919, we release a podcast once a month where we read through that whole edition, all the articles word for word, and we provide some more modern commentary on it. So it's an 11-year podcast. We're in our third season, so there's still plenty of time to hop on and learn from the source of this material. Plus, we're getting lots of other vision teachers involved in the project. But the essence, the core of the Bates method, a lot of times when people hear about natural vision improvement or even about the Bates method, they jump right to eye exercises. Like, okay, my vision is poor, my eyesight is weak, I need to strengthen my eyes, I need to work them out, and I need to exercise my eyes in order to see better. But I'm here to really turn you in a different direction and say that is not going to fix the problem. Sometimes that even makes the problem worse, because the problem with a lot of our eyes is not that they're weak and they need to be strengthened. It's that they're overworked and they're overstrained and they need to learn how to relax. And this is the central concept of the Bates method, that relaxation is the key to healthy eyes and clear vision naturally. And we receive everything better, not just eyesight, but colors, details, depth. It all enhances when there's relaxation present in our system, as opposed to the opposite, which is strain or stress. or tension. When we have excessive amounts of tension, specifically eye strain and tension in the eye muscles, it interferes with their ability to focus light, among other things. So I'm pretty adamant about this distinction. Today, I am going to share with you a couple practices. I don't call them exercises just because that word has a particular connotation to it, like I'm putting effort into my eyes. But hopefully, what we experience together today will prove to you that this is not about exercising, it's about relaxing. And going back to the beginning of my original podcast, the Naked Eye podcast in 2015, the very second episode was all about this. Okay, this is the Bates method versus eye exercises. Because from the very start of me sharing this stuff with the world, I wanted to make sure people weren't making this misconception. Because the Bates method is not about exercising the eyes. So hopefully that'll continue to make more sense as we go today. The thing that the Bates method is primarily targeting or working with is called refractive errors. This is not limited. The Bates method is not limited to working with refractive errors, but this is a big thing we're going to talk about today. So what are refractive errors? Well, refraction is the process of light being focused or bent. Like if you look through a cup of water or looking down at the surface of water, it looks like things are moving or they're in a different place. That's because the light has been refracted. And so anytime light passes through a medium, whether it's water or glass or atmosphere, it bends and refracts the light in a certain way. So you can see this green laser doesn't just go straight through the medium. Certain refracted beams go at different angles. Now, when we don't have any kind of vision problems and we're seeing things well, that's called emmetropia or normal vision. That means your eye organ is refracting the light correctly into the eye onto the retina. So the back of the eye is receiving all the light. And when it focuses correctly, we don't have a refractive error. But many people do have refractive errors. And we've got 4 main refractive errors. Myopia, which is nearsightedness or short-sightedness, which means you have clear vision near, blurry vision far. That's what I had. Hyperopia, farsightedness, sort of the opposite, not quite as black and white, but generally it means that it's better, it's clearer far, and then blurrier near. Same thing with presbyopia, like also a form of farsightedness, but generally this it's associated with aging, which I don't fully agree with, but once again, you need those reading glasses to see clear up close because it's blurry up close, easier far away. Whereas astigmatism can be accompanied by either nearsightedness or farsightedness. Nearsightedness is when the eyeball is too long, farsightedness, the eyeball is too flat. Astigmatism is a little bit of both. It's more when the eye is a little lopsided or the cornea, surface of your eye, is not perfectly round. And the cornea is a big factor in refraction. So when your cornea isn't the right shape, you see how the green light rays shoot off at different angles? The light comes into the eye and certain rays will shoot off at different angles and make it confusing to focus. So just to give you another visual here, these are the 2 most common forms of refractive errors. Blurry vision. Top, we've got farsightedness when the eyeball is too flat, which this kind of shows you what that might look like. So a book up close would be out of focus, but someone in the distance would be sharper. Whereas the bottom is the nearsightedness. That's when the eyeball's too long, or short-sightedness. Myopia, the book is clear up close, but the person in the distance is out of focus. Now, this is the light, right? The eye is meant to be refracting the light to focus onto the retina at the right spot. In the case of farsightedness, you can see it's actually focusing behind the retina. So it's refracting not enough. In the case of myopia, it's refracting too much, which means that it comes to a focal point in front of the retina. Now, the light doesn't just stop there. It continues spreading out and casts a more spread out image on the retina, which creates the appearance of blur. Now, astigmatism isn't shown here, but like I said, this is the cornea, the front of the eye. You could imagine if it's more kind of football shaped or lopsided, these light rays, once again, are going to have a hard time coming to a focal point on the bullseye, so to speak. Now, if you look up refractive errors or vision problems on Google Images, this is the kind of diagram you're going to see. It shows the eye that's too flat, the eye that's too long, and it quantifies the problem. But I want to point out a fundamental flaw in this diagram. It's missing something of crucial importance. And what it's missing is the extraocular muscles. Where are they? You know, there's 6 powerful muscles around each eye. Why are they not in this diagram? And that's where Dr. Bates came in to start to incorporate the extraocular muscles' role in the changing of the shape of the eye. So this is the emetropia that we mentioned earlier. When you have normal vision, no refractive error, we see the same kind of diagram, the eye getting long and the eye getting flat, but all of a sudden we have this new element here, these eye muscles that pull and release on the eyes like a muscle pair to lengthen the eye appropriately for near focus, like on a flower, or to flatten the eye for far focus when you look off in the distance. And it's like your bicep and your tricep, all the other muscle pairs in your body, when one set contracts, the other set relaxes. And it's this give and take, this flexibility of this soft tissue, fluid-filled organ with these powerful muscles applying force to the outside. This is where things can go wrong, though, in the case of refractive errors. The simple way to put it is that when there's strain, eye strain or mental strain, interfering with this flexibility, we end up with blur near or blur far or both. On the left, it shows myopia. So this is when the oblique muscles around the middle of your eye are kind of stuck. Whereas in farsightedness, it's the recti muscles that are stuck. They're keeping the eye too flat. So this basic diagram here is correct, but it's just missing that piece of the question, why? Why is my eyeball too flat if I'm farsighted? Why is my eyeball too long if I'm nearsighted? Well, this gives us a little bit more clarification, more of a reason, underlying root cause of why the eye is not flexible. It's because of this muscular strain, this muscular imbalance of the eye muscles. And so if you go to the eye doctor and they measure your eyeball too long or your eyeball too flat, they've got a quick fix for you in the form of artificial lenses, right? We can put a curved piece of glass in front of the eye. We've got a convex lens for farsighted people. What this does is it brings the light forward to the retina. So now the light is landing on the bullseye. If you're nearsighted, you use a concave lens, and that shoots the light farther back. So even though your eyeball's too long, this lens is shooting the light farther back. Or if your eyeball's too flat, this lens is bringing the light farther up. So it seems like you've kind of fixed the problem. But what Dr. Bates pointed out is that not only are these glasses and contacts not actually fixing the problem, over time they can actually make it worse. And what I want to present to you today is the possibility that you can reclaim this flexibility back into the eyes. And we want to talk about why. Like, why can't we just wear the glasses and the contacts? Well, I want you to think about, once again, this diagram doesn't show the effect on the muscles. So I want you to think about, what are these glasses and contacts? What kind of effect are they having on my extraocular muscles? And what kind of other effect might that have elsewhere in my body or in my mind? So that's kind of what I thought. Like when I first learned about this stuff, it's like, well, I'd already been wearing glasses and contacts for over a decade, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But what happened was these artificial lenses were giving me an artificial clarity. So yes, it was giving me clear eyesight, and I was a functioning member of society. I was able to go to school, see the board in the classroom, drive, go to work, all that stuff. but I was suppressing or ignoring some of this underlying imbalance. Like the blur that I was experiencing was actually a signal saying, hey, there's something that needs your attention. And when I would put the glasses and contacts on, it would just push that down and say, what do you mean? Everything's fine. I can see. So there's this deeper level that we want to explore. And like we talked about earlier about refraction, anytime light passes through any medium, it gets filtered. So your glasses and your contacts, although they are helping the light bend to land on the bullseye in your retina, some of that light is lost. You're not getting the full spectrum. You're not getting the full picture. So what happens is you don't get as much color coming through. It may seem like it's more colorful because it's clearer, but that's the distinction between details and colors. It also distorts sizes. You may have gotten used to this over time, but plus lenses for reading make things look bigger and closer to you. They're literally called magnifiers. And minus lenses for nearsightedness make things seem smaller and farther from you. They're sort of like these low-powered binoculars. So at first that may seem pretty innocent, but I realized that I was basing the majority of my reality off of this distorted image that had less colors. I wasn't getting the same level of depth. It kind of flattened my vision. And like I said, yes, I was productive and functioning with the help of the lenses, but this seed planted in my head that I wonder if I could achieve natural clarity. I wonder if I can actually achieve this type of vision without depending on crutches like glasses or contacts. And that's why I lit up with joy when I discovered the Bates method, because that provided the pathway out of that vicious cycle of stronger and stronger and stronger prescription lenses. And it helped me connect with my true vision. Because if you're wearing glasses or contacts right now, that's technically not your vision. That's a prescribed vision given to you by an eye doctor to help you see, quote, normal vision. But that's not your true vision. What you see with your glasses off, that is your true vision. Now, at first, that might be a little disheartening because there might be some blur or some issues focusing or some difficulty or some vulnerability. All kinds of emotions can come up when you take your glasses off. And I would suggest that those are little clues for you to get closer to the root cause of why the vision isn't clear in the first place. Not just age related, not just genetics, but these more deeper mental, emotional, psychological components as well. So my main argument of our class today, my main theme here is that when you relearn to focus light correctly onto the retina, onto that bullseye, without artificial assistance, but with your built-in system, this has profound potential systemic effects, physically, mentally, emotionally. When I first learned about this stuff, I was just interested in seeing more clearly, getting sharper visual acuity. I had no idea it was going to transform me head to toe, mind, body, soul. I mean, it's this really powerful entry point for healing. Our eyes are very, very powerful. And so what kind of systemic effects am I talking about that are mentioned on the bottom of the screen here? Well, when you start to achieve better focus naturally, first of all, relaxation, number one. I did not realize how much strain and stress I was carrying around with me all day long without even knowing it. So when we learn how to use the eyes correctly, this massive sense of relaxation spreads out from your eyes, your brain, your spinal cord to all the nerves in the body. It's really a full body experience, this deep, deep relaxation. We all maybe know what kind of the eye strain or the ocular migraines or headaches feels like when it's all that tightness and tension up in the head and stress and everything. So when we can melt that away, there's this freedom, this spaciousness, this lightness. Not only our physical focus, literally, physically we see more clearly on a physical level, but like I mentioned at the beginning, mental focus, your ability to concentrate or focus on a task for longer, or achieve deeper states of meditation, these kinds of things. flexibility, not only in your literal range of motion of your eyes where they can move, because glasses kind of limit where they move. They kind of keep them more pointed forward, but also more just sort of general flexibility in life, being less rigid. Balance is huge. Your eyes are a huge aspect of your balance, along with your vestibular system. So the deep inner ear canals and the fluids in there, but also the level of your eyes. If you might have a little bit of a head tilt or something like that. I mentioned earlier the effect of the glasses. I mentioned the concave and the convex lenses for nearsightedness and farsightedness. But with astigmatism, if you've got a cylinder at an axis, a certain angle in your lens, that can kind of mess with your whole balance and your orientation as well. Not to mention if you get bifocals or trifocals or progressive lenses where you have to look through certain parts of the lens. So I'm inviting you to think about what are the effects of this innocent glasses that we're wearing, and they're so normalized now, but they're actually having these deeper effects elsewhere in the system. Proprioception, like I said, our awareness of the space around us, where we are in space, is tied into our vision in a big way. Memory, your memory can improve. And we can even, I've been joking lately that sometimes things will come into one eye and out the other eye, just like sometimes things come in one ear, out the other ear, without actually leaving an impression, a visual memory in your brain. And we can actually test this. On the last slide that I showed you, the very bottom line was a particular color. Can you remember what color that bottom line of text was? Did it come in and leave an impression and now you're able to recall it? Or did it come in and go right out and you can't remember it? So let's double check, right? So did that color come through into your memory, or did it just, pass by? This is how so many of us kind of live our lives. We let things kind of pass by us and we don't really see them. It's kind of the difference between looking and seeing. How you can look at something but not really receive it. So I'm inviting you to think about how I increase my seeing capabilities and remembering this visual memory piece. Also imagination, your creativity, huge element of your vision. Color perception, depth perception, fusion, which is a teamwork between your two eyes and your two brain hemispheres. Even pain relief, that Better Eyesight podcast I mentioned earlier. This month's episode, where we read the February 1921 edition, is all about pain and how we can actually use the Bates method and these ways to work with the vision to manage pain naturally and decrease pain. Also, intuition. Vision is not just your eyesight, it's also your insight and this whole gut feeling, following that inner voice and that inner intuition. Oftentimes people report other senses improving, their hearing, their taste, their touch, their smell. When you work with one sense, the others oftentimes enhance as well. And then I think one of my favorite ones that was driving me in this path was to achieve a state of independence and freedom. I just didn't like waking up in the morning with blurry vision and having to reach for my glasses or put my contacts in before I could do anything. I wanted to wake up and just open my eyes and start the day, or be able to go jump in the ocean and swim, not have to worry about it. Like that independence and freedom and self-sustainability was like sort of a big factor for me personally. So this goes to show you, we're not just talking about eyesight, right? There's so much more how it affects the nervous system, all the other systems in the body, and the mind in a big way. So without further ado, I would love to share with you some of my absolute favorite and simplest ways to start incorporating the Bates method into your everyday life using light therapy and dark therapy. So we've been learning so far from some of the other presenters in Color Light's world, and we will moving forward in March and April and May and June about different forms of light therapy and color therapy. And I wanted to share Dr. Bates's version of light therapy and also dark therapy. And it's quite simple and quite natural. It's something that my dog and my cat both do without them knowing the Bates method. It's called sunning, and it's Very, very simple. You close your eyes and you face towards the sun and the sky, and you pivot your head side to side. So you create this little bit of a head swing, or maybe you sway your body side to side. Sometimes it is okay to just be a little motionless and enjoy it. But what we want to do is, remember how the eye is it's designed to refract the light into a spot onto the inside of the eye. We don't want to just have it stimulate that one spot. When we swing the head and move it around in different directions, we're spreading that light all around the back of the inside of the eye. We really want to make sure we balance this with the dark therapy, which is palming. This is where we completely block out as much light as we possibly can using the palms of the hands. So you cup your hands. It's not flat palms. You're not actually pushing on the eyes. You're making any contact with the eyes. You're simply sealing them off from as much light as possible. Now, I do have pretty large hands, so I am able to achieve a complete seal. There's no light leaking through at all. If there is light leaking through, make sure you're using your palms, not your fingers. Sometimes people use their fingers by accident. So we want to line up the center of the palm with the center of the eye, essentially. I kind of rest the heel of my hand on my cheekbone, and then I kind of wedge this part of my fingers underneath my eyebrows. So I actually like to lift my eyebrows up, kind of cup it, wedge it in there, overlap the fingers of this hand over the other on the forehead. So it creates like a V shape. So I can breathe nice and easily. And we want to, normally when we're doing this inside as a separate practice of palming, we actually support our elbows, or we lay down on our back, or we find some comfortable position. When you do this outside as a part of your sun sandwiches, you don't really have to worry so much about supporting the elbows, because you're only going to be palming for about 5 or 10 or 15 seconds at a time. So when we alternate between sunning, palming, sunning, palming, sunning, palming, then that's when I call it a sun sandwich. For two reasons: because we're sandwiching the light and dark therapy, but also this is literally feeding your eyes. You're feeding your eyes a sandwich. And for many of us, sometimes we are undernourishing our eyes. Dr. John Ott called this malillumination. We might know about malnutrition, but malillumination is when we're not getting enough of that natural environmental sunlight. And this is a picture of a woman demonstrating the palming practice in Dr. Bates's book 100 years ago. So not only have people been doing this for 100 years, but palming is also found in yoga. So people have been doing this for thousands of years. It's such a simple, natural thing. Same thing with the sunning practice. It's been a long time tradition for people to, commune with the sunrise and the sunset. The way that Dr. Bates taught it involved having the eyes closed. So we have this extra layer of protection and filtration and diffusing that sunlight through the eyelids. So I would love to kind of guide us all through this together for just about 4 or 5 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to go 5 to 15 seconds of sunning, right into 5 to 15 seconds of palming. And we're just going to repeat that, alternate that for a few minutes together. I know we're all on the computer right now. So if you happen to have some sunlight available, you're welcome to either bring your phone or your laptop outside to try it. Or if your light is coming in through a window, you can do that. Or I'm just going to use my light bulbs just to kind of go through the motions with you today, because that is an option. You can also use indoor lighting. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I'd love for us to kind of go through this together. And as we go through the motions of eating a sun sandwich, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about what's going on here. So I'm going to go right into it. And I'm just going to start a little bit of a timer here just so I can keep track. So for sunning, I've got my light bulbs here. So I'm just going to close my eyes and I'm going to begin the swing. So I'm just pivoting my head left and right. And you want to find a comfortable pace. You don't want to go necessarily too fast. Sometimes we get a little over eager and we get excited, and it's nice to remind ourselves to kind of slow it down. And just feel, even if you're doing it inside, or maybe even if it's nighttime already, we're just pretending, we're just practicing right now. So that's already been enough time to sun. So we go right into palming. We cover the eyes with the palms and we watch the light fade away. It gets darker, darker, darker. Just for 5 to 15 seconds, you're just enjoying the dark therapy. Good opportunity to connect with the breath. We keep the eyes closed and we slowly transition back into the light therapy. So we come into the sunning. I like to keep my eyebrows gently lifted as I sun because I want to prevent scrunching my eyebrows down. I don't want to squint. I want to be receptive and allow the light to pass through my closed eyelids in a relaxed way. There's no strain or tension here. And when you go into palming, that's another great opportunity to relax. If there has been any kind of squinting or straining or tension that has risen during the sunning, the palming gives you that chance to melt it away in the darkness. If you want, you can continue to swing as you palm, or you can enjoy the stillness. But that's been about 10 or 15 seconds. So we release the palms, lift the eyebrows to thin the eyelids slightly and find that rhythm with the movement. It doesn't just have to be horizontal. Like I said, you can go up and down. If you want to hit those other parts of the retina, maybe you want to do a little bit of a head roll, head circles. Sometimes I like to do little infinity signs, kind of like drawing an infinity with my nose. If my nose had a Sharpie marker sticking out of the end of it, right back into palming. And maybe you want to continue that infinity pathway, or maybe that gentle circle. Or once again, maybe you just want to relax your shoulders and kind of hang out in stillness. But just to explain briefly what's going on here, when you transition back into sunning, the iris muscles, the involuntary muscles in the iris, constrict your pupil, the opening of the eye. It makes the opening, the black part, smaller. And then when you palm again, you block all the light. The iris muscles dilate the pupil, so the opening of the eye grows, it gets larger. So I'm sure we all probably knew that in a certain extent, how in brighter light, the pupil constricts, and in darker light or in darker situations, the pupils dilate. But what we might not know is how that actually sort of acts like a pump. So the movement of the muscles inside your eye to adjust to accommodate the different light levels, going from the brightest light in the solar system to the darkest dark possible, pitch black in your little palming caves, is opening and closing these channels of the eyes. And it's increasing this circulation. A lot of our vision problems are rooted in a lack of circulation and a constriction. And so the sun, the bright light, the heat, the warmth opens up the channels. The palming relaxes them and keeps them open. And we are inviting fresh blood up to the eyes. The eyes are filled with these little teeny tiny channels and capillaries where if there's the slightest amount of tension or excessive amounts of eye strain, those parts of the eyes may be getting cut off from circulation. And when any part of the body isn't receiving the blood and oxygen and nutrients it needs, it suffers. So we are doing some light therapy and dark therapy in order to open up the channels so that all the parts of the eyes can get nourished, not only by the blood from within, but from the full spectrum sunlight from without. So we've gone for about 5 minutes now. So to finish, you generally want to finish on sunning, right? Because if you finish on palming, your pupils are going to be dilated. It's going to be a little bit of a shock. So we want to adjust our eyes to the brighter situation so the pupils close down. And when you feel ready, then you just blink your eyes back open, either off into the distance on something or back onto the screen. And we didn't actually do a quick check before the practice. But if you can kind of remember how your vision looked or how your eyes felt before doing this, and compare it to after, you may already see a difference or feel a difference. It might be a difference in how the eyes feel. It might be a difference in how they're seeing. Some of the things that I notice are the colors are definitely a little more vibrant, and the edges of things have a little bit more definition and sharpness, which is one of the reasons why sunning ended up becoming my #1 favorite practice from the Bates method, because of its instantaneous effects. Now, if you were doing that inside or you weren't actually doing it in the sun, it may not be as much of a change. But when you do this in the sunlight, it is such a relaxing and invigorating practice. And so there are these 4 rules that I want to make sure I mention very briefly around sunning, because this is the one part of the Bates method where you could go overboard and it could cause damage. We've all probably gotten sunburnt before and know that that doesn't feel great, and it's not great for the long term. So we don't want that to happen to our eyes, right? We stopped at 5 minutes, and that's even on the high end of the spectrum here. When you start this off, I would probably only do it for 1 or 2 minutes at first and gradually work your way up. But there's a limit. You don't want to go overboard for this. You want to give yourself little tiny doses of this natural sunlight. But the first rule is to always let your comfort be your guide. So if this ever doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel right, you should either stop it or adjust it to make it feel comfortable. So you see in the picture here, this was at one of my retreats 2 years ago, and we got up for the sunrise. So the sun had just come up over the horizon, and it was actually coming through, for these people, they were out in the direct light, but if that was too intense, see how the light is coming through the vines and through the leaves? That's another option. If you are light sensitive, you might want to do it under a tree first or in the shade before you do it in that more intense direct light. But doing this earlier in the day or later in the day when the sun is low in the sky is best. Technically, you could do it if it's higher, but you would shorten the amount of time. So your comfort is always your guide. The second rule is to always balance the sunning and palming. And if you do sun sandwiches, you don't have to worry about that because you've already balanced it throughout. The third one is to do it a little bit often. So doing a little 1-minute sunning session multiple times throughout the day is better than doing a 20-minute chunk all at once. So it's better to spread it out and to give yourself, like, maybe eat 3 sandwiches a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the fourth rule is to not look at the sun with the eyes open, to not stare at the sun with the eyes open. That's a different practice called sun gazing, and that's not what I teach, and that's not really what the Bates method taught per se. And so whenever I share this with people, I invite you to keep your eyes closed, and you still get the same benefits, and you're just adding that extra level of protection and filtration. So these are the sun sandwiches. This is the basic light therapy and dark therapy that we find in the Bates method. Dr. Bates did expand upon this, and he did teach variations of the sunning practice. We're not going to go into that today because we're going to keep it super simple and just start to feed ourselves more sun sandwiches with the basic sunning. Now, this kind of covers the light, utilizing light to improve our vision naturally. And like I said, this is one of the practices that I attribute to some of my huge improvements in not needing to use glasses to see with. But we haven't touched on the color too much. So first I wanted to differentiate between the natural light and the artificial light, right? So the natural light is what we were just talking about, the outdoor sunlight. And it doesn't get better than that. That's the highest quality. And that's when you're thinking about light therapy, you might want to think, okay, is the sun available? Maybe I'll use that. But what if the sun isn't available? We do have other options. We have artificial light that we can use. We've got indoor lighting and all these screens now that we're dealing with. So there's a subcategory of more of the therapeutic lights versus the non-therapeutic lights. So I was just using light bulbs for my indoor sunning. These are halogen light bulbs. This is an incandescent light bulb. And also I have some full spectrum lights too. So those are the kinds that I use for indoor sunning. But for even more specific therapeutic uses, there's even other devices like the syntonizer, which is from syntonic optometry, which has been around for almost 90 years now, of actually letting specific frequencies of light enter the eyes with the eyes open, looking into this device to target specific issues. Also, lately, these red and infrared lights have gotten more traction and more popularity, people using them more. So these are lights, artificial lights with a specific intention and a specific protocol. Whereas there's also these non-therapeutic lights like, fluorescent lights or compact fluorescent or LEDs or the elephant in the room here, all these screens that we have to look at these days. So those are lights that we have to use for general lighting and for working on the computer and stuff, but they're not necessarily having a therapeutic effect or a specific intention behind them other than just to illuminate. So I just want I want to call your attention to the difference between not only natural and artificial light, but between the different types of artificial light, because not all artificial lights are equal. And there's a lot of ways we can revamp our whole light diet and our light environment that we bathe ourselves in and we take in through our eyes. But that's definitely something, like I said, that some of the other practitioners in the group are going to share even more about. What I keep coming back to with the Bates method is the sun, because it has, we have this ability to perceive a certain spectrum of light as humans, the visible spectrum, Roy G. Biv, the rainbow. And so these light devices we can use are using specific frequencies within the visible spectrum. Some of them go beyond that into the infrared and ultraviolet. But when we look at the sun with the eyes closed, we are getting the entourage effect. We're getting a healthy, balanced spectrum beyond the visible spectrum. So we're not just working with the visible spectrum, we're working with the invisible spectrum. A lot of it does get filtered out in the environment and the atmosphere, but this is just part of the puzzle that sometimes gets left out. And we want to make sure that we're balancing out the natural and the artificial as well. So moving on to the colors here, this has to do with what Dr. Bates called central fixation. Now, that book I mentioned earlier, Perfect Sight Without Glasses, is full of amazing materials, but you'll notice that at the very beginning, before the entire book even starts, before the introduction and everything, there's one page called The Fundamental Principle. And on that one page, Dr. Bates explains central fixation and claims that it is the fundamental principle of the entire Bates method. Ironically, this is also one of the most overlooked parts of the Bates method, and I'm guilty of that as well. I saw that little foreword. Usually I skip the forewords of books, right? I just want to get into the meat of it. But I made a mistake there. I missed the fundamental principle. And so I started doing my sunning and my palming and the other things that Dr. Bates taught, but I wasn't incorporating central fixation. And today I wanted to incorporate how color plays a role. All it has to do with is the difference between your rods and your cones. So this picture on the screen shows an inside view of the eye. So I mentioned the iris muscles earlier. Those are the muscles in the colored part of the eye that contract and dilate the opening, the pupil. There's the lens inside the eye, which acts to refract the light into that point. And that bullseye I've been mentioning so far today is your central vision. That's where all of your cones are. And the reason the cones word is in color is because you have red cones, green cones, and blue cones that provide you with your color perception. The entire rest of your retina is covered in rods. That's in black and white because they are not anatomically equipped to perceive colors like the cones are. So central fixation, one way that we can understand this concept, because it might be new to some of you, is that things appear more colorful in your central vision than in your peripheral vision. And we can test this out right now. There's a lot of different colors on the screen, and just notice what happens. And especially if you have your glasses off, because glasses can kind of mess with this. Even if it's blurry, that you can still see colors. That's the beauty of color, is it doesn't have to be detailed in order to sense what color it is. So when you look at one of the colors on the screen, maybe in this word color at the top, you're noticing how the colors look with your central vision, and just remember how they look for a moment. And then you go down maybe to this word colorful, and now these are colorful, but how does the original color word look? Do those colors look as vibrant? Do they pop as much, or do they look more dull? They lose some of that vibrancy. And then maybe when you come back to it, it pops again and it becomes more colorful, but then maybe the colors down in the lower part of the screen have lost a little bit of that vibrancy. Now, these are fairly close together, so you might want to try it with some other colored things in your room, right? So I've got Constance's gold essential oil bottle here. So I've got that gold color, and then I've got this little heart, and it's kind of blue and red. So I've got them on different sides of my desk here. So when I look at the gold color, I'm not picking up on the blue as much. I can see it in my periphery. I'm not looking at it directly, but it's only when I move my central vision to the heart that, oh, wow, there's all those colors popping in. And I notice that the gold color has become a little bit less gold. And that's because my rods are not sensing the colors the same as my cones were. Now, what does this mean? What does this, how does this help you? Well, a lot of refractive errors can be rooted in a loss of central fixation. And what that means is if I was looking at the heart and I was trying to see the gold essential oil as colorful and as clear, that would stress my visual system out because it's not anatomically equipped to handle that. And my entire visual system decreases. My vision shuts down in a sense. Instead, if I look at the heart with central fixation, which means that, okay, my central vision's on the heart, the gold essential oil bottle is in my peripheral vision, I'm letting it be off center, not as clear, not as colorful, my visual system rejoices, it relaxes because I'm actually following the anatomy. And so your central vision is for colors and for details. What about the periphery? We do not want to ignore the periphery. We were just talking about how, okay, I'm noticing my peripheral vision isn't as good in terms of seeing colors and details, but your peripheral vision is really good at something else, and it's really good at movement and motion. So since we may have been kind of sitting for about an hour now, I'd love to invite us all to stand up. You can stay seated to do this practice as well. If you want to stay seated, you can move in your chair. I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to begin to swing or sway my body. So my central vision is attracted to the colors on the screen because that's what your central vision is for, seeing colors, details, but we're primarily focusing on the colors today. And as I move my body, I'm shifting my weight from my right foot to my left foot. My central vision's on the screen, but in my peripheral vision, I'm noticing my lights, my windows, my water, my microphone, my keyboard, the picture on the wall, the trees out the window. Everything in my peripheral vision has a sense of motion to it. So we are allowing our peripheral vision to open up nice and wide. Ideally, we do this without any glasses or contacts because once again, they can limit our periphery. And we see where are the edges of my visual field? It's such a wide open field here. The central vision only occupies a very small little zone in the center. And we are letting our anatomy work right now by letting the periphery be softer and wider and open and be full of movement and motion instead of trying to see it all clearly. That's the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is they try and see the whole screen clearly and the keyboard clearly and the windows and the lamps and the water. That is the opposite of central fixation. You're using your eyes incorrectly when you do that. Instead, if you can shrink your central awareness down to a small part of the screen and allow your peripheral vision to be enjoying the movement and the motion, you're starting to get into alignment with your own visual system and anatomy. So what happens if you freeze? if you stop swinging, stop swaying, and just sit still or stand still, what happened to the periphery? Did it stop moving? And that right there is kind of the issue with us sitting at our screen all day. We have lost a lot of this peripheral movement, as opposed to how we used to live our lives maybe a long time ago, more connected with nature, moving a lot more outdoors, lots of distances. Now we're indoors, sitting still at a screen, and the peripheral field is unstimulated. So I urge you all to not act like a statue when you're on the computer, especially not when you're in a Zoom call like this. A lot of times we feel like we have to be very, very still and not distracting to other people. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be, flying all over the place, but I do invite you to incorporate a little bit of subtle movement into the periphery, into your body, so that you can remain connected with your surroundings, not to try and see it all clear, but to see, okay, things are moving, right? I'm rocking forward and back a little bit. I'm swaying side to side a little bit, or maybe it's just a little tiny head movement. So it becomes like almost like a little bit of a game. It's like, I wonder how subtly I can move so that people watching me on Zoom won't even take note of it. It's so subtle. But what's important is that you invite this movement and motion into your eyes, into your vision, into your life, so that you stare less. Staring is one of these really bad vision habits. Now, the other way that I invite people to incorporate central fixation and this color awareness into their lives is to assign one color per day and really become aware of it all day long. Normally, I do the 7 days of the week with the 7 colors of the rainbow, but we have a little bit of a modification. Next month, our Color Lights World Group is hosting Color Week 2021, which is 8 days instead of 7. It's going from March 13th to March 20th. And we've got red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, blue, violet, and magenta. So all day on Saturday, March 13th, you get to be on the hunt for red colors, red objects, red foods, red drinks, whatever, and we're inviting you to participate. This is an interactive event. So if you take a picture of something red, you can upload it onto social media and use that hashtag Color Week 2021. And then everybody else will be able to see it and interact with it, comment on it, because we don't want you to just observe the colors. We want you to share the colors and also share your interpretation or experience with the colors, because we all have different things to share about this stuff. That's the beauty of it. So we're going to be announcing more about this. I think Gabrielle already got the site opened up so you can actually get more information about this, and we'll be sharing more about it. It's all leading to our next free event on Saturday, March 20th. So it goes from the 13th to the 20th. And then that final day, we're going to be meeting up again on Zoom at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 4:30 in Europe. And this is going to be a chance for us to all come together and share some of our experiences and some of the highlights from the Color Week, some of the beautiful colors that we all experience around the world. So definitely stay tuned for that. And I'm sure you'll get more information about that as we get closer to it next month. To come back to additional things that I would love to gift to you as an extra thank you for being here with me today and learning about this stuff. I have a color visualization palming party. So we did some palming today as a part of the sun sandwiches, but palming is also a separate practice that you can do for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or longer. So in this video, it's about a 30-minute palming session that you can follow along with, and it's working with visualizing the colors, really seeing them inside yourself. So there's that one, and then there's also my replay of the computer vision tips class. There's 6 computer vision tips that I share. This was actually part of the gift that I gave after December in our last Gifts to the World. But in case you need a refresher or you haven't seen that before, we're going to be including both of those videos along with the replay of this class for you as well, just as a thank you for being here and participating. And then if you are like really excited and eager to learn even more about this Bates method stuff or vision improvement stuff, I do want to let you know that there are many, many ways that you can do that. Like I've already mentioned, my 2 podcasts, the Better Eyesight Podcast and the Naked Eye Podcast. So the Better Eyesight one is more about learning the original Bates method materials. The Naked Eye Podcast is more my interview show. So I bring on other practitioners and interview them and learn about their specialties and how it overlaps with vision as well. I have a lot of videos on YouTube. If you search Bates Method 101, it, follow along practice guides, all kinds of cool stuff on there. During the pandemic, I did a free 6-part vision tune-up series. So that's a really good way to kind of guide you through a sequence of these classes for free. We did put a documentary out last year as well called Vision 2020, From Eyesight to Insight. And we are actually doing a free screening of that this Friday on February 26th. So really cool opportunity to watch the movie for free. There's going to be, it's like an event. Actually, there's going to be a panel and discussion, and then it's going to show the movie. So I'm sure we can provide you with the information, the link on that as well. I'll have a link on my website too. Otherwise, you can always rent or purchase the movie to watch. I have a book. It's sort of like a workbook, guides you through all the different practices and the palming and the sunning and beyond, called Give Up Your Glasses for Good, Holistic Eye Care for the 21st Century. And I've created some online courses that guide you through this in either a 6-week course or a 6-month course. So a lot of different ways that you can learn about this, but I'm here to remind you to keep it simple. And I don't want you to feel overwhelmed with like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do or so much to learn. If you just start doing sun sandwiches every day, your vision will begin to improve. It's as simple as that. Now, there's other things you might want to do, like using weaker prescription glasses to kind of match your improvements, and lots of other options using eye charts and stuff like that. But where I started with this stuff was palming and sunning every single day. And so that's the only way this is going to work, is if you do it on a regular basis and you start conditioning your visual system to be able to handle brighter light like sunlight, and you start to increase your color perception and your color awareness and really connect with your vision on this new way. And just speaking from experience, when you feel the light coming into your eye and all the parts of the eye bring that light into focus onto the right part of the retina, it's ecstasy. It's this joyous feeling. And I remember at the ILA conference in Pula, I think it was Velamir's workshop, talking about this connection of dopamine and eyesight, right? So it literally, there are these chemical processes that release when we have this good focus and this good vision. And we're being deprived of that when we just depend on the glasses and the contacts. So I wanted to open this up today as a possibility and for you to explore for yourself, and to let me know if you have any questions about this process. We're going to kind of transition now into more of a Q&A section to wrap things up today. And if you do have any more kind of specific questions relating to like specific symptoms or vision problems like that are on a more personal level, that might be a little more appropriate for like one-on-one if you want to email it to me or set up a consultation. But I would love to hear if anybody has any experiences, any feedback, any questions about the sunning, the palming, the visualizing, or any of this natural vision related stuff. And before we get into that, I just wanted to express my deep gratitude for everybody being here and paying attention, and hopefully you'll be able to participate in all the other cool events we have coming up in the next several months. So let me go ahead and close out of the screen share here, come back to the group.
Yes.
All right, and I'm seeing Velamir's here with us to to join in as well. Nice to see you.
I joined you in the middle, luckily.
We also can see
Yeah,
Leona.
this time it's a little uncomfortable to me.
Yes, so Thanks. Awesome, Nathan. Really, really wonderful presentation. Very motivating to really do the things for the eyes. So Nathan, I'm looking here at the chat, and there is one question that came from, let me see.
Well, I'm seeing a first question coming in from Montaha about the Wikipedia page.
Right.
That actually came up in last week. We had a big global vision summit with 30 vision teachers from 20 different countries around the world, and there were thousands of people there attending. And the Wikipedia page came up because if anybody looks at the Bates method on Wikipedia, you will see a quite scathing review of it, and it's quite biased. Sorry, it's quite biased, saying like they pointed out, Bates method is an ineffective and potentially dangerous alternative therapy to improving eyesight. One of the reasons why that page looks that way, remember what I clarified at the beginning, that the Bates method is not eye exercises. Pretty much any negative review you find online about the Bates method is confusing it for eye exercises. Right? The Wikipedia page mentions eye exercises. It says eye exercises don't work. The Bates method doesn't work. That is lumping the Bates method in with eye exercises, which I am on a mission to separate and really distance myself from eye exercises, because that's not what we did today. The other thing I clarified was that sunning is one of the only practices in the Bates method that could potentially cause harm. So that statement there is true. If you go overboard with the sunning, you're going to burn your eyes, and that's not going to be good for your vision. So we have to bring some common sense and some discipline into the practice so that we do not do any damage at all, but B, we are increasing the health of the eyes. If you drank too much water, you would die. So if the Wikipedia page on water said, oh, water is not a proven way to hydrate because it's dangerous. No, just because something in excess is dangerous does not mean we need to avoid it altogether. And actually, if we avoid sunlight altogether, we end up with a host of other health issues. So that guy I mentioned earlier, Dr. John Ott, mentioned the human's necessity to receive a trace amount of ultraviolet light. We need to get enough in order to reach that optimal functioning and without going over the threshold. So unfortunately, there are a lot of, naysayers of this stuff out there. And when I was first researching this stuff myself, whenever I encounter something like that has some controversy around it, that to me proves like, ooh, there must be something juicy in here, something to kind of explore and to experiment for myself. So I didn't bury my head in the sand and ignore these different people online saying, oh, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I took that into account, but I still tried it every single day. And guess what? I don't need glasses anymore. So you can quote all the studies and the Wikipedia pages, but my personal experience has proven otherwise. And I'm here to invite you to put it into practice for yourself so that you can have your own personal experience with it to know if this works for you or not. Because it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's such an individualized kind of process. Mm. And I'm in a WhatsApp group with over 150 other vision educators from around the world. And many of them have attempted to make the Wikipedia page less biased. So they've put in entries, they've made edits to it, but it's always gotten shut down. And we know this story with any kind of alternative approach. There's the tide is against us in a sense, and there's a lot of invested interests to keep people behind glasses, keep them paying for contacts, it's just sort of the system how it's set up. Whereas the Bates method gets us out of that and gives us that independence and freedom. And you can't make as much money off somebody who doesn't need glasses as somebody who does. So it's unfortunate that it is that way, but that does show up in some of these claims.
Yeah. Well, I can read here in the chat from Kathy Stern Nathan, you should be able to go in and edit the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, like I said, it's been attempted by many vision teachers, and we're not trying to like make it say, hey, the Bates method is great and it works for everybody. We're just trying to create a more, balanced, view of it, right? Because as maybe some of you who were involved in the Global Vision Summit last week, there's hundreds and hundreds of people around the world who have devoted their lives to this. And it's just like the other light therapists and color therapists, these amazing things that can happen in people's lives. So I'm happy that I'm on the more kind of optimistic side of things and instilling hope in people that they can do something about their vision, as opposed to the more pessimistic side, which says there's absolutely nothing you can do except wear glasses and contacts. So we're looking for that middle ground there.
Yeah, right. So we are having another comment of Itzel Coronado. She says, there have been a lot of changes in the Wikipedia descriptions. Acupuncture, for example, or chiropractic descriptions changed about 2 weeks ago. Now it says there is only placebo, mostly a scam. So please don't pay too much attention to what Wikipedia describes. Be careful with what you read.
Yeah, and I was listening to Constance's workshop from a couple weeks ago, and she brought up the whole placebo thing in her workshop there and how powerful it can be. And yeah, I always got inspiration from my yoga training, which said that there's certain ways we can obtain knowledge. We can obtain knowledge by other people's accounts. We can obtain knowledge from reading, but the highest level of obtaining knowledge is from our own direct personal experience. And so, like I said, if you have an experience where you don't have your glasses or contacts on, and all of a sudden you can read that road sign way in the distance, or all of a sudden you can read the ingredients on the supplement bottle, that is proof that you have the ability to focus within. It's just our lifestyle and this constant glasses usage is damping that down, and we're inviting it to come back.
Right. So here we're having another question from Susanne Wolfson. Is the Bates method more than the sandwich? And further, when my vision is going better with the Bates method, would it be useful to change the description for the glasses?
Yes, absolutely. So I mentioned that a little bit at the end there, that the simple way to start is with the sun sandwiches, but it goes much deeper than that. I break my vision training up into 3 phases. Phase 1 is relaxation, which does include the sunning and the palming and a handful of other relaxation practices. We did the swinging today as well. But there's 2 more phases that go beyond the basic relaxation stuff. We go into the fusion, which deals with things like convergence and divergence of the eyes and depth perception. And then also the 3rd phase is vision building. And that's where we use different kinds of eye charts of different sizes and getting down to the really small fine print to actually not use these things to test our vision, but to actually improve our vision. So one of the reasons why I got 20/20 vision back was because I practiced reading my eye chart at 20 feet and experimenting with these different techniques to get these clear flashes where I could start to focus on it without the glasses. And as my vision improved, I was like -4 for myopia and -2 for astigmatism when I started. My vision improved and my glasses felt too strong. So if I would have kept wearing those strong glasses, my improvement would have gone away. Instead, I started dropping down to training glasses. So I dropped down to -3.75, -3.5, then I went down to -2, and then I went down to no glasses. So that's a really good question, because if you get these improvements, you want to make sure you have the next weaker pair to move into to secure the improvement that you've gotten instead of the strong glasses pulling you back to where you started. And if you've got reading glasses, you can get those at the drugstore or the pharmacy. And if you have distance glasses, you can get those online from different websites where you don't actually need a doctor's prescription. So you can choose the strength you want. And the frames start at like $7 or $8. And so it's really, really affordable. Ideally, though, you could actually get the help of your eye doctor if you have an open-minded eye doctor or behavioral vision therapist who would be willing to undercorrect you to give you those weaker pairs of glasses. So it's kind of by the books, but the beauty of it is that you can actually have the freedom to choose the strength that you want. You just want to make sure you get the right numbers. So that's a big thing I help with my students with, is figuring out how to step down their training glasses over time.
So fortunately, I had a doctor who always described a little bit lower. And I think it was the reason that I didn't had really so much change over all the years. I'm wearing really long time eyeglasses. Yeah. But if I would know the Bates method more earlier, maybe I wouldn't have glasses now. Okay.
I know. The beauty, though, Suzanne, is it's never too late. I have people in their 90s working on improving their vision, and they're seeing results. And so, but I agree with you. I think that if you would have gotten overcorrected or correctly corrected, that's what creates that slippery slope, and you need to keep on getting stronger, stronger, stronger. But if you're slightly undercorrected, it kind of keeps you in check and kind of keeps it more stabilized. And I often refer to my dad, my father, because he was prescribed glasses when I was a little kid, but he never wore them. And my mom was always kind of, giving him crap because we'd be on the way to the movies and she'd be like, "Do you have your glasses?" And he'd be like, "No." And she'd be like, "Come on, you need to wear your glasses." And he was so stubborn about it. But I believe that that's why he still doesn't need glasses, because he was sort of stubborn about not wearing them. And if he would have worn them, I feel like his vision would probably be much worse now than it is. So there is something to that, whether it's using the weaker ones or just taking your glasses off, which my eye doctor scared me out of. He said, if you take your glasses off, your vision is going to get worse. That's only if I'm straining and squinting and doing the wrong thing. But if I do the right thing with my glasses off, like Bates teaches, then not only does my vision not get worse, but it actually gets better and better and better. And I had one student who, before she knew about the Bates method, she was friends with her eye doctor. She was like minus 5.75. That was to help her see to drive. The computer screen is so much closer than what you need to see to drive. So she complained to her eye doctor, said, "These are a little too strong. Can you get me some computer glasses?" So her friend prescribed her weaker glasses for the computer. She didn't tell her doctor, but she wore them for driving too. And within a very short amount of time, she was ready for the next one down. So over a period of 5 years, without doing any Bates method stuff, no sunning, no palming, no swinging, no nothing, just wearing the weaker glasses to do her everyday stuff, she went all the way from minus 5.75 to minus 2.75. She dropped down 3 full diopters just by wearing weaker glasses. So when we combine the weaker glasses with the Bates method, then we've got really a lot to work with. So once she started working with me and adding this stuff in, she got all the way down to minus 0.75. And then we stopped working together. She kind of kept going on her own, and now she's off them altogether. So it's a combination of doing the right stuff and then also using those graduated weaker lenses as you go too.
Nathan, sorry, could I say something?
Yes.
Well, according to Bates, actually, the real culprit for myopia are external ocular muscles, right? He was opposing the Helmholtz theory that internal or ciliary muscles are the main culprits for myopia. And then, I don't know whether he came to that stage or not, but recently I asked Larry Wallace, what among those 6 oculomotor muscles, which ones are the main ones responsible for it? Because I found somewhere that it's actually about those oblique muscles, superior oblique and inferior oblique muscles. And actually Bates methods, I'm not sure whether the Bates method really targets these muscles. Maybe it does with the swing. But when these muscles are employed, when you do movements like this, so when you do such movements, you can imagine, maybe you remember Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses. that's the way he acted on the stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while doing this, he employed these oblique superior and inferior muscles. And I don't know which one of the exercises and the methods that Bates proposed actually targets these oblique muscles most. I think it could be some kind of swing, slightly modified, like Axel-Rose swing, combined with the central fixation. And well, speaking of central fixation, I think that it's still shrouded in mystery, and people still mostly don't understand what they are supposed to do with a central fixation. And actually it should become a habit, something that you employ throughout the day, that you have incorporated in your daily routine, because Bates' method is actually the way of life, and changing it, it's not having separate time for exercises.
I totally agree with you, Velimir. It's central fixation there are ways we can practice it with some of the color awareness and certain techniques like that, but you're totally right. At the end of the day, central fixation is a habit. It is the new way that we see all the time, pretty much, when we have enough light to achieve that central vision. So a lot of the Bates method is like, this is another reason why I really clarified between the eye exercises, because when we think of eye exercises, we think of practices that take time out of our day, and it's like, okay, I'm working on my vision. But what Velimir just said is that when you're typing an email on the computer, when you're driving your car, when you're in a conversation with someone, when you're watching a movie, that's your vision practice. That's your time to be aware of, where's my central vision? Where's my peripheral vision? It's an ongoing awareness. It's a mindfulness practice. And eventually you don't need to do any practices. People who have good vision, they're not palming their eyes. They're not doing the swings. It's just habitual. And so that's where we're headed with this. But you're right. When it comes to myopia, it is the oblique muscles that are the culprits here. I don't get too bogged down in the whole fight between Bates and Helmholtz, because I personally think it's both. I don't think it's just the ciliary muscle and the lens. I don't think it's just the extraocular muscles. I look at it as a teamwork, right? So the oblique muscles lengthen the eye, the ciliary muscles thicken the lens, the convergence and the divergence is just right, the pupil size is just right, the light perception is happening mentally. So it's this massive, a lot of moving parts. So yeah, you're right. When you do left and right swinging or up and down swinging, you're primarily targeting the recti muscles that go up. They point the eye up and down, left and right. But the oblique muscles wrap around the middle of the eye. They give us more of the diagonal movements. And like Velimir was showing, these kind of more rotational movements. So one of the popular practices to target the obliques is actually using a picket fence shifter, or you can even just use your fingers. But if you do this horizontally, you're getting the left and right recti muscles. If you do it vertically, you're getting the upper and lower recti muscles. But if you do it diagonally, then you're targeting the oblique muscles, right? And the way you use this is you actually have it facing you. You can maybe even watch my eyes as I do it. It's creating a lot of these saccadic eye movements so that my eyes are shifting and moving quite rapidly. That's what actually relaxes them. A lot of times we think relaxing requires a lack of movement. I just want to sit on my couch and relax or lay in my hammock. But the eyes are quite different. They actually relax when they're in that state of really rapid movement and vibration. So I'm not sure if that showed up on the camera much, but by doing that kind of stimulation, you are loosening those misbehaving muscles that are clamping down on the eye. So when it slides through that pattern and wiggles and jiggles and vibrates, it's loosening up those tight muscles, as well as probably the muscles inside the eye that control the lens as well. So yeah, it helps so much to know which muscles we actually want to be targeting for what vision problems and how exactly to be releasing them and relaxing them.
Well, thank you. I would like to ask Kathy Stern, because Kathy was so friendly to write a lot of information into the chat. Kathy, would you be willing to say?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. Hi, Kathy. To give us your comments, please.
So some of the things that I was saying is that, eye muscles are one thing we can look at, but there's a lot of new research about nearsightedness. And some of it is talking about, there's a difference between when you're first becoming nearsighted and then when you're already wearing eyeglasses for nearsightedness. And they found that if you're already wearing eyeglasses, that just the way the light is refracted through the peripheral part of the eyeglasses or contact lenses is a contributor toward your nearsightedness increasing. And there are several types of eyeglasses and even contact lenses that are being developed for people to wear. They're already approved outside of the USA. We don't have one here yet, but we should soon, that will compensate for that. So the idea is that they've shown if you wear that type of eyeglass, like as a child, that your nearsightedness won't increase. I think that there's also a number of factors to becoming, for example, nearsighted. And so when that happens, the question is it diet? Is it nutrition? How much of it is genetics? How much of it is when it happens? So if I have someone who's 12 years old and becoming nearsighted, I know that most of that is what I'd call environmental. It's from being on screens and on devices and not getting out and moving around and moving their eyes. If it's a very, very young child and it's increasing very rapidly, maybe they do have some more pathological condition or some genetic condition. But I'm an optometrist and I've spent my career helping people reduce nearsightedness. But there was a study a number of years ago showing that if we reduce the prescription, which has always been something that's been talked about, that actually they found many people were getting more nearsighted. So I was always very careful in reducing prescription, just a little bit at a time, because if you do it too much, I feel like you're putting a different type of stress on the system. And maybe that person will get more nearsighted, because I think of the nearsightedness often as an adaptation to some problem. So if you're having trouble working at near for long periods of time, maybe your body is creating nearsightedness because that adds magnification and allows you to work at near more easily. It's just a problem when you look up and try to see far away. But then if you give the eyeglasses, to me, you're taking away that adaptation. So what's your body going to do? It's going to do that adaptation again. And now you're going to be more nearsighted. They're going to give you stronger glasses. And that cycle just keeps going on and on. So I prescribe, when I need to give someone something for distance, I always try to give them something less for near, like in a bifocal or a multifocal eyeglass. And a lot of people, I give prescriptions just to use at the computer because it reduces the stress on their eyes. Not because they can't see, but if they come in even and they're developing a little bit of nearsightedness, if I give them a special lens that's more therapeutic to use at the computer, they may come back within a couple months and not be nearsighted anymore. If that's a big driver of what's going on. And also giving people better visual skills. Many people have not well developed using the eyes together and how they focus and keep their eyes together. And if we enhance those skills, that helps also.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it looks, we could have a very long ongoing talks and discussions. So I would say, because we are already more than 1.5 hours. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot, Nathan. It was an awesome presentation, so inspiring to go on with this and really do beautiful things for our eyes and for the health and consciousness. Thanks a lot. And as Nathan said, you are very much warmly invited to participate to our Color Week. It's March 13 until 20th. Please go to the website color-buresch.at. There you can find all the details. And you are also invited to our Color Week World Zoom event on March 20th for the start of the spring at 4:30 p.m. Central European Time. It's going to be a free event. Please feel free to contact Nathan directly for further activities and questions. And I want also to mention our next speaker is going to be Lynn. Where is she? Lynn, maybe you can you say something, Lynn, so that we can see you? Lynn? No, she doesn't say anything.
It looks like she's unmuted, but the audio is not coming through.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Lynn Potrite, she is present. She's going to be the presenter of our next Zoominar, March 9th, Color, Creativity, and Emotional Intelligence. So please come back, and thanks a lot, Nathan, and it was lovely having you all here.
Thank you so much for everybody being here. Thank you for Gabrielle and for hosting it, and can't wait for attending the next several talks. It'll be really exciting.
Yeah, right. Okay, so bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a lovely day or night or morning. Bye. All right. Was great, Nathan. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Really awesome.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will write you
Wanda.
some comments. Okay. Have a lovely day, Nathan.
All right. And I'll talk to you over WhatsApp just to
Yes,
cover
right.
a couple last minute things. Cool.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.